This video is looking at Act 5, Scene 1 of Macbeth in detail. It's a key scene. Obviously, it's Lady Macbeth's final appearance. It shows, or almost brings to a conclusion, her story. But it also has direct connections with Act 2, Scene 2, following the murder of Duncan, for reasons that we'll see in a minute looking at it. Now, it's not that long a scene, and doesn't necessarily have that much in it that's different that's going to be used, but there are things that can be seen in depth that might just take your ideas a little bit further. Now, essentially, three elements to it. There's a woman who serves Lady Macbeth. She's alerted a doctor that she is behaving strangely at night, so the doctor comes along and wants to observe it. Lady Macbeth sleepwalks into the room. She's obsessively scrubbing her hands for an imaginary spot of blood and mentions the smell of blood as well. And then, as she sleepwalks, she reveals details about the murders Macbeth has committed and her role in them as well. The doctor comments that this confirms rumours that are already around and suggests that Lady Macbeth needs divine help rather than his help. So if we're considering the big issues, as always, the two characters, the two main characters in it and their relationship, and then four big ideas behind it: supernatural, the dichotomy of ambition and loyalty, gender and... Even though you might think that gender would be a key one here, femininity, and there are elements of it here, I think it's far more about our focus on Lady Macbeth as a character and her journey, how it's come to an end here, and the continued impact of the supernatural. So let's deal with the first quite short key moment that potentially could come in here: the exchange between the gentlewoman and the doctor as she appears. Now, one of the key things in here is this mention of her light, the light that she has by her, which the gentlewoman reveals is by her continually, by her own command. Okay. Now, this is of huge significance, really, if we're considering the movement and journey and change in Lady Macbeth. Remember, this is a woman who, in our first encounter with her, called on dark night to come and cover so she can't see what she's doing. She literally called on the dark and evil spirits to come inside her. Now she is carrying light by her at all times by her own command. The suggestion appears to be that she is repented of that idea. She is scared of evil forces. She has moved to the light rather than the dark, although at the same time this is still clearly nighttime, so she is still being messed about with at night. So that influence and impact of light, very... The doctor says her eyes are open. The gentlewoman points out their sense is shut. She's therefore not experiencing what's going on. But you can see that a little bit more metaphorically, if you like, that at this point certain senses of her are shut down. Now, I mean, in this scene then, it's very, very brief, and I can't really see it coming to you as an example you're going to use, but it's certainly going to be asked on any, but it certainly has elements you can use. Think about that impact of supernatural influence, both by the light and by the idea of her senses being... Okay, now this is far more the depth of what we're looking at here. This is the key part of Lady Macbeth's revelations and what the doctor and gentlewoman hear and comment on at the side. Start obviously with the outdam spot. I mean, it's well worth to see that how her language has broken to pieces here. 1, 2, why then 'tis time to do it, hell is murky, fire my lord, fire, soldier in a field. But we'll come back to that in a second. What I think is interesting here is to look at this statement, because this kind of identifies the way that she's working in this scene. Now, I've said it has a connection with Act 2, Scene 2. In Act 2, Scene 2, Macbeth is traumatised and unable to cope with the guilt, particularly attached to the idea of blood. And Lady Macbeth is being practical and attempting to refocus him and move him on through it. Now, I'd say in this scene, you see, she performs both of those roles. When she says here, imagining she's talking to Macbeth, what need we fear, who knows it, when none can call our power to account? We're seeing the extreme confidence that we associate with that old Lady Macbeth. that there is nobody that can stop them. Okay? Even if people know it. We are so powerful. That's the level of confidence that she had, yet followed immediately by a reference to the blood of Duncan, the amount of blood, which of course she saw because she took the daggers back. Now, is that a change in her now? Is that this guilt is coming out underneath? Or is this how she felt at the time? The first bit's what she says, the second bit is what was also going on underneath her. We go to that similar regret here with the Thane of Fife had a wife, where she now obviously referring to Lady Macduff as the wife of Thane of Fife. But what you might think is that phrase is a little bit nursery rhyme like. The Thane of Fife had a wife, where is she now? And therefore potentially connecting her to the way that the witches speak. And certainly the influence of the witches is something that is worth considering at this point. Is this just her losing her mind because the guilt is coming to the surface? The guilt that was underneath already is really coming out, and she can't cope. Or is she actually being destroyed actively by the witches? Now, I mentioned before about the language, the breaking apart of her language, and certainly one thing to note here is she is no longer speaking in iambic pentameter. She has all the way through the play. She's now speaking in a disjointed prose. And it's worth remembering that right at the beginning, in our first meeting of her, she identified her strength as being the valour of her tongue, the bravery brought about by her tongue, her ability to persuade and to talk. And here that's the one thing that's been ripped away from her. When she then follows up the point about the Thane of Fife with "will these hands never be clean," we could see this potentially not just as a comment on the hands that links her to the way Macbeth was reacting earlier on, but also the sense that following on from Lady Macduff and the mention there, will these hands never clean? Will we never get rid of the blood? Will we never be able to stop spilling the blood? Then comes this image once again. All the perfumes are able, not sweeten this little hand. There is a direct comparison with the image from Act 2, Scene 2 about Neptune's oceans, or Great Neptune's oceans, will not wash the blood from his hand. You can't really deny that there's a direct connection between the two images. Now, on the one hand, one of the great significances between them is the sense that all the perfumes of Arabia will not sweeten this little hand is far more feminine than all the great oceans, or Great Neptune's oceans. Now, yes, okay, she's a woman, but remember, this is the woman who wanted her femininity removed from early on. Does this mean we've got to a point, a cyclical point? At the beginning of the play, she asked to be unsexed. Here, is she reclaiming her femininity? Is she going back to it? Is she submitting back to that poor little distressed woman she was? Now, okay, that's not me suggesting that. Remember, we're talking about a period of time well into the past where, you know, Lady Macbeth is challenging an awful lot of gender concepts. But is that where she's ended up with at the end? Certainly that phrase little hand particularly seems to put that across to us. Now, the other thing to note about it, of course, is that if it is connected to that previous one, well, it is connected to it, she wasn't present when Macbeth said that. She wasn't there when Macbeth said all the Great Neptune or Great Neptune's oceans couldn't wash it. She was off taking the daggers back. So this couldn't be her imitating what she heard. This therefore would have to suggest some element of supernatural interference at this point. Now further down, again, we get another example of what we said at the front of the balance in many ways. We had the hands have been clean, Athena 5 having a wife, where is she now? Now, of course, and all the perfumes of Arabia won't sweeten this little hand. Now, of course, we've got the other Lady Macbeth, the one we saw at the time. Wash your hands, put on your nightgown, don't look so pale. Her giving orders, imaginary orders to Macbeth here. Banquo's buried, he can't come out in his grave. Not only making reference to the Banquo murder, but at the same time showing that powerful, well, maybe practical Lady Macbeth rather than powerful at this point, is still inside her at some point. Maybe that's what's being destroyed. Maybe that's what's being pulled apart, because the final, very sad words in which she is reduced to absolutely nothing, reduced to repetition, to bed, to bed, to bed, to bed, to bed, come, 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 as though her language has completely disappeared, has completely gone from her. That's that the witches have taken the one thing that she had and drawn it away from her, pulled it out. At the end, she finishes with, amongst all of that, by saying, "What's done cannot be undone." That's the exact phrase she used back in Act 3, Scene 2, when trying to refocus Macbeth. She says, "What's done is done." You know, trying to suggest to him, you just have to get on with it. But it has a slightly different meaning here, doesn't it? It's more, we can't change anything, in a more sad, almost depressed way. So throughout this scene, what you see is you see Lady Macbeth. It's quite complex. There are elements of the old Lady Macbeth here. There are slight concerns underneath her. There's guilt underneath her. Is this new? Is this something that was always there? What's happening to her at this point? So basically, we're looking at her current mental state at this point, but we're also looking at the effect of the supernatural forces. It's that thing all the way through the play. How much impact is the supernatural having? How much is about human reaction? Now, the third key moment, again, another small one here, but it's a nice, interesting one. There's plenty of things in it where the Doctor is left to speak at the end. It's not a soliloquy. He's speaking to the gentlewoman. Lady Macbeth has left at this point. And basically talks about how it's confirmed the rumours, foul whisperings that are around. But his conclusion, very interesting here, reflects what seems to be our intended interpretation. Unnatural deeds breed unnatural troubles. As he carries on, infected minds, death pillows will discharge their secrets. And his conclusion is she needs divine more than she needs the physician. She needs, spiritual help more than physical help. Finishing with the almost exclamatory, God forgive us all, that what's going on. Obviously, she has just revealed to the doctor and therefore, confirmed all these rumours that I think pretty much everyone got anyway about all of these murders being Macbeth's responsibility. But his concern is that it is, or his conclusion, is that it is the deeds that have caused this. That is purely the idea. When you do what you do, it leads to mental issues, to mental troubles. His final line, which kind of echoes the fact that we will see him again, of course, in a couple of scenes' time, where he has to speak to Macbeth and then leaves and says he wouldn't come back even for money, is at this point, everything he's got allows him to think of what he's seen and make conclusions from it. But the daring not to speak really shows you the impact that it's had on of the situation at the time. It's the first indication, really, of what we're going to see throughout Act 5, the fear in the country that is being created by the way that Macbeth is now running everything. So think about this idea. What's the effect of forces? And as we then think in the big ideas overall, what influence are we seeing supernatural forces having on her? Okay, you've got to think about her as a character. How is she suffering at this point in the play? But it's tied up completely in that relationship that may or may not be there. If we think about this in terms of the rest of the play, this is very important in terms of Lady Macbeth's character is as the end part of it. This is her final appearance. She will, of course, kill herself afterwards. We will have a reference from the Doctor as to how she's struggling still. But this is a very different Lady Macbeth in many ways from what we saw in Act 1, Scene 5. Yet there are certain references back to that beginning that suggest some kind of cycle, almost like what goes around comes around, that many of the things she asked for and called for at the beginning have come back to the end. And then with the supernatural, really consider not just how it relates to supernatural in general over the play, but it's the connection between her and the supernatural. Her first words in the play echoed what they had said to Macbeth. And throughout it, we've seen small connections. Yet in the middle of the play, she, especially in Act 3, she seemed to reject the supernatural elements that happened. She rejected the idea that the dagger was anything real. She rejects the idea that Banquo's ghost is real. How has that changed? What did she ever really believe? And to what extent? And where is she now?